I mean, how's this for an intro? It is Huskers Live on tap, live from Kros Strain Brewing in La Vista. Excited to be here. First show doing Huskers Live on tap out here. First of all, thank you so much for being here. And if you're making your way in, we do have a lot of raffles we're going to be giving away. A lot of great prizes here. Go over by our man Cam Broham. He's gonna get you half of a ticket. We're gonna be drawing throughout the show here for the next 2 hours. We got everything from Omaha Steaks $100 gift cards. We got glassware from Kros Strain, T-shirts, gift cards, beer, which is great. And also, you don't even have to draw. The foam fingers, the koozies, the magnets. Grab one of those on your way, either in or out. But excited to be here. I'm Nick Handley alongside with Grant Hansen, our Husker 24/7 sports team, Mike Schaefer, Brian Christopherson, Michael Bruntz, who's distracted right now. I don't know. Are you tweeting right now?
No, I feel like I'm like doing my homework before it's due here.
I sent this out last night, guys. I mean, come on. But it's awesome to have you guys here. Obviously, we've all known each other for a very long time. Next couple hours here, we're going to be talking about Nebraska. Mainly, I would say 95% of this show is going to be football-based. Point for this Husker football season. We're going to get a little volleyball. Grant Hansen, who's the play-by-play voice for the Omaha Supernovas, is also going to be able to provide a lot of good content when it comes to volleyball, and also a little men's basketball. BC, that's your beat as well. So good stuff. I mean, Bruntz, if we have time, we can get into some red-white series, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
I like it. Whatever.
And Shafe, we can talk Cleveland Guardians.
Yeah, I think that's what
we don't want people to leave here, too. But first of all, I want to thank all of the folks here at Kros Strain, obviously Bobby and Scott, Doug, Tina. They're amazing, awesome people to work with. The Cornhusker Crusher, if you haven't tried it, it is fantastic. It is the official craft beer of the Huskers. Also, big thanks to Omaha Steaks. They are going to provide a little bit of a sampling coming up in about an hour. And also, as I mentioned, we will have some gift cards from Matt and the crew at Omaha Steaks. Cam's here as well, so appreciate those guys being a part of this. And, of course, our friends at Husker 24/7 Sports, Performance Podcast, and Walnut Media. So, boys, first of all, let's get to the important thing. What are you guys drinking right now? Brunsey, what do you got there?
Fairy nectar.
Okay.
Yep.
BC?
I got the Crusher.
The Crusher.
It's delish.
Attaboy. Shafe?
This is the first time I've ever had the Crusher. It is quite good. I feel like I'm an idiot for just now imbibing.
You said it. I did not.
Well,
Crusher. Crusher's the way to go.
And this is a new release. This is the Funky Nectar. It's a little offshoot. It's kind of a funky sour version of the Fairy Nectar. So it's great stuff. Of course, Kros Strain. I probably don't need to pump them up too much. You know about the reputation of Kros Strain, the very best in the area. And again, we are so happy to be here. So now that we got all that out of the way, we're going to get into this in hour number 2 in a little bit more detail and a little bit more lengthy conversation. But let's get right to it. Matt Rule, who has Nebraska at 5-1 at the midway part of the season, has also found himself involved in another conversation going on because, as we saw, Penn State is, well, not the team we thought they would be this season. This is a team that, as we all remember, was a preseason contender for not only the college football playoff, but for a national championship. And all of a sudden, they have, for lack of a better term, they've crapped the bed. You had a respectable loss to Oregon. Then they lose inexplicably to UCLA, who all of a sudden is hot. And then they lose to Northwestern in State College. So James Franklin gets fired, and now all attention is on Matt Rule being a Penn State alum. So quickly going around the horn here, Brunsey, I'll start with you. I mean, I don't think this is any mystery that he would be linked to this job. But now that we're seeing it, he addressed it on Monday. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it's no surprise. I mean, I think the biggest surprise was the job opened when it did. I mean, there was always one job that if it ever came open, that was the one you had to be really concerned about. And there's a lot of appreciation. I think certainly the relationship between Pat Kraft and Matt Rule is a big reason why, beyond just him being an alum, that we're even having that conversation. So I don't know. There's still a lot to kind of be played out with this season too, because I wouldn't necessarily say that it's like a slam dunk that he's top of the list, even though I know the reports are out there that he is. I just, from talking to Penn State people and being on Penn State message boards, which is its own thing. But
What?
I don't know what the level of excitement would be as we sit here today if that's the hire. Like, I think that's not a knock on Matt Rule. I think when you fire a coach that less than a year ago was one game away from the college football playoff finals, like that's a high bar, and there's not a lot of coaches that are going to meet that type of a bar from a fan expectation point of view.
BC?
Yeah, Bruns hit on the main points. I mean, I know Matt didn't go as far as some people wanted on his Monday press conference and sort of knocking it down, and so I think that's where the anxiousness is. But when I listened to it about 3 or 4 times since then, and it was a very Matt Rule answer. Like he did give some love to Penn State, but there was a lot of affection for sort of his family situation in Nebraska. The way that the fan base treats him. His wife Julie obviously owns a business within Lincoln, and his parents live here. And so I do think he has become really attached to this place, and I don't downplay that at all. And, it could be a leverage play within Nebraska, too, not for his own salary, but for possibly NIL and, like, building that pot up so that you're one of the 10 to 12 programs that are, as he said, paying that $30 to $40 million for your roster. That was his quote, and he said that hasn't really been the Nebraska way necessarily to want to go that route, but I'd like it to be. And so that, to me, was the literal money quote of what he had to say Monday.
Shafe, kind of piggybacking off of what BC said there too, the whole part about what he laid out and really having that opportunity on Monday to speak about sort of his wish list in Nebraska, wanting to be some of the elite spenders in college football at Nebraska. I thought what he said, a lot of focus on what wasn't being said. I thought he was saying something there.
Yeah, I mean, he's a pretty savvy guy. We've seen him use the media and use his opportunity to talk about things and speak them into existence, as we're going to see with Nebraska's, grass that they're going to have here in a couple years. We'll see if Matt Rule's here to coach on that grass that he spent so much time campaigning for here. But he's a guy that understands what's in front of him, and he knows that there's still some things that Nebraska isn't providing that would make his job a little bit easier. And so I kind of agree in the sense that I don't know that the leverage for Nebraska would be more money, as he's already structured to be paid $12 million at the end of his contract here. And I think for Nebraska, the big thing is, can you provide stuff for Matt Rule that isn't just more salary for him? Because ultimately that doesn't raise your floor. You already have Matt Rule. So the idea is, what can you provide for him that makes his life a little bit easier and can move you forward? The thing about this that's going to be fascinating, there's not been a lot of times where Nebraska's had a coach that someone is attempting to hire. Bo Pelini in 2012 was rumored for a number of jobs, but that didn't really come up towards the end of November, going into their last conference championship game. So it's going to be fascinating how Nebraska handles this as a team, how Matt Rule handles this week in and week out, because if they keep winning, that conversation's only going to get louder. And so that's sort of where I'm fascinated how this all goes.
What do you guys make of Dylan coming over the top on Tuesday and just basically saying, no, he's not leaving, he's not going anywhere, and sort of whatever Matt Rule did, if the theory was that he was building up leverage on Monday for other things later on down the line, it seems like Dylan came in there on Tuesday and sort of blew all that up.
Yeah, I think it means something because Matt Rule talked to the team on Sunday, I'm sure about it, and I don't know if I would go as far as Dylan did, but he heard what we did not hear behind the walls, and so the fact that he said that, it was really interesting. I mean, this is a bizarre situation because it's like week 7 of the college football season, but it feels like we're kind of having like a week 10 or week 11 sort of conversation, and you've got all these games in between, and like Schaefer said, if Nebraska keeps winning at a certain level, it ramps up. But then there's also this component, like what if Nebraska really keeps winning at a certain level and is heading toward or Signetti for that matter at Indiana is heading toward a playoff. Penn State's kind of in a pickle there because no coach is going to want to leave his team like in the middle of this run, and Penn State might not want to wait till January. I mean, this is quite a storyline we're gonna watch unfold.
Yeah, because I think if you look at what they're going after, there's only 4 guys in college football that have won more games over the last 3 years than James Franklin, and none of them are leaving their current positions. And so, I mean, what's the guy that fits the bill that gets him in there by December and in time for all the correct recruiting deadlines that you need to meet to be successful in 2026?
What's early signing day, Schaefer?
December 3rd. So,
Yeah.
like 6 weeks from today, I believe, is the signing period. The early signing period would begin. And so Penn State's class is already starting to get picked over. Nebraska is one of the programs that's more than happy to make some phone calls, reiterate some offers. There are some guys that are in the 26 and 27 class that are already planning on coming out to Nebraska for visits that are affiliated with Penn State or recently were affiliated with Penn State. And so this is the nature of the beast. And so the longer it takes for them to install whoever their head coach is going to be, the more difficult it is to put together your recruiting cycle. I mean, they're already going to lose whatever they have for 2026, where people are just going to sign blind to a coach that they may not know, just with the nature of when that could get announced. And then you think about the transfer portal aspect of it. And if it is someone like Kirk Cincinnati and he's coaching all the way into the middle of December, you're not even going to have the month of December to even do the tampering that we know that goes on. So it is a very, very unique situation, regardless how this goes, from the recruiting standpoint of it, because everything has changed. We haven't had a coaching cycle quite with these rules. How this affects recruiting, we don't know yet. And then for Nebraska to sort of be on the periphery of it, where, if you lose Matt Rule, you're losing him right in front of that signing period. That could be difficult as well. So there's just a lot that goes into all of this.
I want to circle back to this, and we're going to do so in hour 2, because I think I want to go as far as just predictions of, do we think, A, that Penn State has him as number 1 on the list, and B, do we think that he's going to he would want to leave Nebraska? Because he said a lot on Monday, and I know the focus was what he didn't say, but I think if you paid attention, there was a lot. You guys bring up some great points, but we want to get through this is the mid part of the season. We're halfway home, and this leads into what is such an interesting game on Friday night out at Huntington Bank Stadium against Minnesota. The Fighting PJ Flecks that have had not only Matt Rule's number, but had Nebraska's number, more importantly. Brunsey, we were talking about this not that long ago, that if you look at this history of Nebraska and Minnesota, it's easy to say, boy, Friday doesn't look good. But if we're trying to believe this team has exercised demons of Nebraska's past, meaning winning one-score games, making plays to win games, not lose games, then if we look at this team just in the micro, then you think, hey, they got a great shot on Friday to get 6-1 and be bowl eligible as early as they've been I can't even remember when. So if you look at it from those different optics, where are you leaning just on how Nebraska comes into this game? How confident do you feel where they are, what they've put forward here in these last 6 games?
Yeah, I mean, I think Nebraska's gone a pretty long way this year to kind of, for lack of a better metaphor, kind of ripping down the walls. I mean, a lot of the turnover issues that have bit Nebraska year after year after year, they seem to have addressed to some degree. I know Dylan had the 3 picks last week, but the types of 5 or 6 plays a game where you just need somebody to make a play. Nebraska has been doing that, and that's what's really been lacking, especially in this series with Minnesota for years. Like, anytime there was a chance to screw something up, Nebraska screwed it up. If there was a chance for Minnesota to make a play or somebody to make a play, Minnesota made a play. Just steady quarterback play with a grinding run game is basically what Minnesota has been. And I think Nebraska, the last couple of games, yes, there's still issues that need to be addressed, but a lot of the kind of losing football that they've played for a long time seems to be trending in a positive direction. I mean, even just, I think, mentality-wise for this team, it seems like they've taken a pretty big step from last year of kind of expecting to win in some ways rather than kind of just waiting for the other shoe to drop. And that to me is progress in year 3, and I think what kind of took a lot of time to kind of just get out of the program.
Nebraska started 5-1 a year ago. They're 5-1 this year. What's similar, what's different about the first half of the season in 2024 and the first half of the season in 2025?
I do think Dylan, despite his struggles last week with the 3 picks, is at a much higher level than a season ago. So I mean, when your quarterback is processing better, I mean, just the fact that he was able to lead that drive last week after sort of a tough day, I think is huge for the psyche of this football team and for him, because you guys know on the social media there's that list that goes back a decade of like 20 to 25 drives Nebraska's had when the game's tied or they're behind, and half of them end up in turnovers, all of them ended up poorly. And for Nebraska to check off another box, you didn't want to be in that type of stressful situation, but it's a sort of stuff we talk about all spring and summer, like, oh, there's going to be a point where they're down 4 points. How are they going to respond? And no one likes when they're there, but they responded. And so I think just that, they have more of that under their belt with that win and the Cincinnati game where your defense pulled it out in the last 2 minutes, that I think can be useful going into the second half of the season. Also, they're not playing Indiana and Ohio State right ahead, which I think was a huge factor in sort of the downslide last season.
It's a great point you bring up there, BC, because, and I want to get into that ability to find ways to win football games, and I think a lot of that's going to come through when we've got our position, or I should say our offensive, defensive, special teams grade, but I think within are going to be some position groups that we'll mention. But Shafe, the thing that I've kind of taken away from this first half, and I'm curious where you stand on this, we use culture so much. We throw it out there so many times about every Nebraska team and every coach that we've seen since you guys have all covered this program, and myself and Grant. I don't know if we know exactly what it means, but I want to ask you this. What you've seen in the Michigan State game, especially in the Maryland game on the road, and even now that Cincinnati game, which is now a top 25 win, is that the definition of what you think the Matt Rule culture is supposed to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly tenets of it. I think the thing that stands out the most to me about this team right now through 6 games is they've had multiple opportunities to just go away in these games. When Michigan State took that lead, Nebraska immediately went down and scored. They had a couple bad plays, and then Dylan Raiola finds Ja'Cory Barney, and it's like a switch just flipped. All of a sudden, they're playing better football. They did it again on Saturday against Maryland. I mean, Deshaun McCullough comes off the edge. He ends that drive. I mean, it's a critical play in that game. You look back on it, it's hard to know whether Nebraska wins that game if they don't get a stop there, because Maryland could go up 10 or what have you. And Nebraska gets the ball back. They don't score a touchdown, but they continue to just put pressure on the other team. They haven't gone away. They didn't go away against Michigan. You know, how many times in that game when Michigan would score was the thought process? I know on our message board what it was. I know on our message board what it was against Cincinnati and what it was against Michigan and Michigan State and Maryland. And this team hasn't gone away. And so I think that's part of what we talk about with this culture, is that they believe that they're going to have success. They believe that the defense is going to get a stop. They believe that Dylan's going to lead the offense down there to score, and that even if things aren't going great right in the moment, they still trust each other enough that they're going to go out and play. And I think this version of Nebraska football has destroyed some of those narratives that BC was running through, because they believe in what they're doing, and they're getting results. I mean, so much of the past was coaches talking about, oh, we've got to have confidence to do this. We got to learn how to win. Well, you never get those results. You don't have anything to rely on. When Malcolm Hartzog goes out there and intercepts Brendan Sorsby, when Dylan Raiola leads his drive, the next time these things come up, this team has things to rely on that they can go back to. When you're playing USC and it's close and late, you know that Dylan's led a game-winning drive. We don't have to talk about that anymore. That's not a storyline. And so I think that's where this team has made some real progress, in addition to just playing cleaner, smarter football. I know that sounds weird coming off of the Maryland game with the 3 interceptions, but they've done a great job with penalties. They've done a great job with field position. Special teams has been phenomenal. They've cleaned up so much in the margins that now they're just free to go play, and we're seeing the success that follows with that.
Brunsey, what do you make of the Raiola roller coaster over the last couple of weeks? That he goes out there and, like, the touchdown pass to Lindenmeyer and the throw where he's lost his footing against Maryland, that I don't think I've ever seen another quarterback make a throw like that. So you have those moments, but you have the interceptions as well. that have been, pretty jaw-droppingly bad at times, and balls that look like they're supposed to be thrown away that are still picked off in the field of play. What do you make of his play over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, when it's mattered, he's been really good. Fourth quarter numbers, what was it? It was 78% of his passes. Just really dialed in the last couple of weeks in the fourth quarter. And, I think it's probably a sign of maturity for him. I mean, that you're able to kind of get past that stuff, because it felt like, you could kind of see frustration creeping in at times with just the way things were going, like against Michigan State with the sacks, and he was able to kind of get past that. You think back to like the Illinois game last year, like that was kind of the first sign, I think, of frustration for him, that things were maybe not going as easily as they had been earlier in the season. And I think there was a little bit of a lingering effect from that game as the year went on. But I think he's been, he's been really good. I mean, and Nebraska's got to figure out a way, I think, to kind of get some things done in the second and third quarters, the middle eight, which it is kind of remarkable that Nebraska's won the last couple of weeks, given the struggles they've had in the second and third quarter. But I don't know if that's more a better running game, a more consistent running game, or what. But finding some easier throws or whatever. But I mean, I think. I was doing my homework earlier, and I've got my mid-season offensive MVP. It's not Dylan, but I think you can make a pretty strong case that the way that he's improved his play this year is probably a pretty significant story of the season.
I want to go back to something you said there, too, about just basically facing adversity, and maybe it's not pretty while you're there, but then overcoming it. And it seems like, at least to me, that has sort of been the story of this first half of the season, is, when, what hits the fan, Nebraska is in it for a while, and it doesn't always look great, but they come out on the other side with the W.
I think another piece of it, too, is Dana Holgerson's been very good, I think, at finding things just as the game goes along. Like, it felt like in the first couple of years of the Matt Rule era that if something wasn't working, it was just kind of like you're fumbling around in the dark for your keys or something like that.
You mean the screen game?
The screen game works now. This is a screen team.
17 passes behind the line of scrimmage. Didn't work against Indiana.
Tunnel screens for days. But no, I think that's been part of it too, is that when you kind of get into that late third, early fourth quarter, I think they've been able to find a play or two that takes advantage of the playmakers that they have, and they've gotten better around him. I mean, that's the other part too, is like Nebraska's just a better skilled team this year than they have been in the last 2 years. So I think kind of all of that's playing into allowing Dylan to play well when it matters, and I think that's part of the story too.
BC, I want to go back to where we all thought this team would be from a record standpoint. Right at 5-1, I think was what a lot of people probably would have had, whether you had them losing to Michigan. I know some people might have had them at 6-0, winning that game in Lincoln against Michigan. But at 5-1, they're on track. But I will admit this. I drank the Kool-Aid with the offensive line. I thought with Elijah Pritchett, Rocco Spindler coming in, and then just the maturation process of those younger guys, Justin Evans, who I think has been really solid at center, but not being able to figure out the tackle position at least, and even a Teddy Prohaskal throw, a healthy Teddy Prohaskal throw in there too, that I thought this group was ready to take a major step forward, and that in turn would allow this offense to be leaps and bounds better. I think the offense has been better somewhat in spite of what I think has been a little bit more of, I'll say it, a disappointing collective offensive line. I'm curious where you had this offensive line going in and how you look at them now.
Yeah, I thought they'd be more of a strength off the bat. I think the first 5 games, I would say it was a struggle. Now, this is why Friday is big, because I do think they got something done at Maryland. Right off the bat, you could tell they had a purpose to their run game. They were confident with it. Obviously, Emmett was running as determined as we've ever seen him. That was by far, to me, the O-line's best performance. And so if you want to be encouraged, that was it. And you take that forward on the road against a Minnesota program that, yes, they've struggled up front, But if you look back at this series, the last 5 losses to Minnesota, Minnesota's won in the trenches. And their O-line has been better than Nebraska's O-line in those games. And so, I don't know. I think they should read off some of those numbers from the last few years. I know you don't like to live in the past, but in this particular rivalry, PJ Fleck's team has won up front, and this group has to go up there and say, not this time. We're gonna build off what we did at Maryland. So I agree with what you're saying, though. Like, through the first half of the season, I thought there would be more consistency each game. I think that Michigan game, Michigan's D-line and their rush just really got in their heads. Like, Nebraska was on their heels the whole game. And I think even the next week, or, at Michigan State, they were still sort of feeling that. So hopefully what we saw Saturday at Maryland is a sign that they're turning a corner and they found a few things that they can really use as staples.
When it comes to Emmett Johnson, Schaefer, is it safe at this point to say that he's Nebraska's best running back with a year to go, Nebraska's best running back since Amir Abdullah?
Yeah, it's probably safe to say that, in part because I don't know who's going to be offended on the list that's between there.
Maybe
he could come through the doors and point out that he had a pretty nice 2018, but I think Emmett's lining up to have a better one. I mean, a lot of it to me is they have found ways to utilize him. Even if the running game hasn't been perfect, they're getting him involved in the passing game. I actually thought he would have, in terms of what he has yardage-wise, it's a little over 700 combined yards. I thought there'd be more in terms of receiving from him. And he's actually caught 24 passes, but it hasn't been as effective as I expected it in that aspect of it. What we saw on Saturday, if you get that version of Emmett Johnson for even just a little bit for the rest of the season, Nebraska's offense is going to be a lot better. I mean, he was running really, really well on Saturday. I mean, it reminded me of watching Amir Abdullah in the sense that Amir sometimes would just make things happen when nothing was available. And there was a screen catch that Emmett Johnson had where it should have been a 2-yard loss, and he still managed to get 10 yards out of it. The 50-yard run could have been done 20 yards into it once people caught up with him. But Emmett has played really, really well. It's going to be fun to see on Friday. He's returning to his home state of Minnesota, former Gatorade Player of the Year, wasn't recruited by PJ Fleck. There was some rumors when he initially said he was going into the portal that maybe he was going up to Minnesota to finish out his career. So I think there's a lot for him personally invested in Friday's game. So if he was running hard in College Park, I'm excited to see what that looks like on Friday in Minneapolis.
I want to get into our offensive, defensive, and special teams grades here in just a moment, but to kind of wrap up just the midseason report, I want to go around the horn because we've all done the preseason predictions. You guys did it. We did it. Bruns, I'll start with you. Where did you have this team at the halfway point of the season?
The final number was 8-4. I'm trying to remember how they got. I think I had them starting fairly strong, and then I had them beating Michigan at home. I know that. Had them losing at Minnesota. So, and then it was going to get a little bit dicey down the stretch in November. So I think they're pretty much on track for what I said for the most part, but I don't know that November is going to be nearly the slippery slope that I thought it was going to be if things kind of go the way they have. Although, I mean, UCLA was dead in the water, and now they're the 85 Bears. So we'll see what that looks like.
Good reference. Yeah, I like that.
Not the 86, maybe the 86 Bears.
The 06 Bears?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I like that. BC, what about you?
Yeah, I had them 5-1, so they're right there. When this schedule, when I first saw it, though, October was the month, like, to run the table, and so work to do here. I mean, get Minnesota Friday, come back home, take care of a Northwestern team that's been, I think, a little bit better than people expected. Obviously Penn State's in a world of hurt right now, but they went there and did it to them. So if they could pull this one off Friday. And you notice we're not talking about, hey, they can be bowl eligible. That's nice that we're not having that conversation like that's a big deal. And it would be cool if they just handled business and that wasn't a topic. It's just like, oh yeah, they did that. They're bowl eligible, and now you move on to bigger things. But this month, to me, and when you looked at the teams on the schedule, it was a real opportunity for Nebraska to show they're at least in the upper middle of the Big Ten, like in that 6 to 8, 9 range. And then you work from there. You have that foundation, and you take your big swings in November.
Shafe?
Yeah, I mean, I had them at 5-1 as well. I thought they would beat Michigan and then have a letdown against Michigan State coming out of the bye, something like that. That's not obviously how it played out, but they're where I thought they would be. They're going into the game that, not just because it's coming up here on the schedule. This is the one that I circled before the year. This is sort of where if Nebraska's different under Matt Rule, I think they're more talented than Minnesota. I think they play better football than Minnesota. I don't think there's anything daunting about going to that park or that environment, on a Friday night. I don't think any of that should really matter. But can this Nebraska football team go win a game that it's expected to win? And that's been a problem for them in the past. And so I'm very curious to see if they can do that here on Friday. I think if they can, it tells me they've really have elevated as a program, not just because they got to their 6th win in October and they have an opportunity for more, because they're finally beating teams that they should have been beating all along. I mean, I think that's part of the whole issue with Nebraska over the last decade. And if they can start showing that, if you go win at Minnesota, if you come back and you take care of Northwestern, then we can have the conversation about, if you beat USC, look at what's in front of you, that kind of thing. And so they've got to take care of business on Friday, but they're right where I expected them to be.
Grant.
Well, I was sitting there at 6-0. I thought they'd beat Michigan and then drop a few down the stretch. So they're a game behind for me. But, I mean, I think if we were sitting here in August and saying they would be 5-1 heading into the middle part of October, I think most people would have taken that. Most Nebraska fans would have taken that. And go back to the point you were making, too. Like, that's sort of the theme of the month, really, is every team they're playing in October, they should be favored to beat. They're more talented then, and it's not like this giant gap, but it's enough that they should be winning those games. And to this point, they've done that. Like, it hasn't been easy by any stretch. They haven't made it any easier on themselves, but they've been able to take care of business. And so, I think pretty much right on schedule is where I've got them right now.
Yeah, I was 5-1. Minnesota being and again, we can change later when we get predictions. Just because we had it in the preseason, we can change our predictions as far as.
Yeah.
Damn it. Okay, well then there you go. I got Minnesota winning, but I did have Michigan as a loss. But when Grant and I did the Husker Huddle podcast, I picked them to win. So it's a feel of the moment. But I did in the preseason prediction, my losses were to Michigan, to Minnesota. I had UCLA, and at first I thought, what the hell was I thinking? Now that one does look kind of tough, and then I had Penn State, but now I'm thinking, what the hell was I thinking? I think we all were, because even though they still have to go there and Penn State looks the way they do, they still have a talented team, minus Drew Aller, who's out for the season. But yeah, 5-1, I think they're on track where they need to be. We're going to get, and this is a perfect transition to get into maybe that area that we feel how they do achieve those goals. But before we do so, actually before we get to that, if you guys have raffle tickets right now, we're going to do one drawing right now, and that is for a $100 gift card to Omaha Steaks. Grant, I want you to go ahead and tell us who the winner is. We got it up here. Come see my man Cam. He's going to hook you up with a $100 gift card to Omaha Steaks.
All right, the winning ticket for the gift card is 396-390. 396-390 is the winning ticket. There it is.
Yo, let's go. We got your gift card right here, Joe.
All right, $100.
And if you
Omaha Steaks.
If you just got here and you didn't get a raffle ticket just for being here, we want to hook you up. So Cam will hook you up with a ticket. We're going to be drawing throughout. We've got gift cards to Kros Strain. We've got another $100 gift card to Omaha Steaks. We've also got some shirts, glassware from Kros Strain. They're going to hook you up with some beer as well. So make sure you come over here and grab a raffle ticket. All right, boys. Let's get into our offensive, defensive, and special teams grade. I'm going to start with special teams because I have a feeling. I want to start with maybe, in my opinion, maybe you guys would disagree, the most impressive phase in 2025 for Nebraska in special teams. And Shafe, when I think of the hire of Mike Eckler, we all thought he brings energy. It's infectious. He's going to get guys to get excited to be a part of special teams. The question is, how good would they be? And I thought they just needed to be a reliable unit. I didn't think they had to be this playmaking, every moment they have a chance to impact a game, they could.
Not dropping snaps and doing the basic things.
Just the overall system of special teams would improve. That would be a marketable improvement from what we saw. I've got them at an A-. because there's been a couple shanks from Archie, even though he hasn't punted as much, and we've had a couple of hiccups here and there, but I got him at an A-. How do you see special teams?
Yeah, I'm the couple mistakes on the punts that Kyle Keenan kick. None of that bothers me. Just where they are as a unit, the fact that they've gone into games and just been the better special teams in a conference where special teams is paramount. I mean, all of these teams play it usually at a really high level, and Nebraska's at such a disadvantage. I mean, I'm just an A+. Like, there's honestly nothing that I could have expected more from this special teams unit than they provided. I mean, they've blocked kicks. They have had a punt return for a touchdown. It did get called back. They nearly had a kick return for a touchdown. I mean, they've set their offense up time and time again. They've won the field position battle. And then it's the little things, like even their punt coverage is just phenomenal. I was someone that when Mike Eckler's name was bandied about, it was a lot more kind of how Matt Rule sort of responded about it. It's like, oh, yeah, the guy that everybody wants you to hire is never the guy that you're supposed to hire. And then he looks into it when it gets announced. I'm looking at these numbers and what Mike Eckler has done in terms of punt coverage and the way that helps you win football games by pinning teams deep and winning the field position. I mean, he's been fantastic. And so I don't think Nebraska could ask for more.
Thanks, Cam. I put you on the spot there, too. He's producing and he's giving away tickets, so thank you for Cam Burlham, ladies and gentlemen. He does it all. BC, where are you at on special teams?
Yeah, I mean, I'd give him an A. Just all the reasons, Schaefer said. I just think Mike Eckler brought that mentality, like what I did at Tennessee, that's what's going to happen here. And if you looked at his numbers the last 4 years at Tennessee, no joke, there's not been a Husker coach that's been hired here that had a better recent resume for what he was being asked to do than Mike Eckler. I mean, they were like top 10 in every single category. And he had that line in a press conference where he said, it reminded me of Tim Miles when he was a basketball coach. He one time said, "Don't put that crap on me." Like the history of Husker basketball when they're having that good run. And that's how Eckler was with those guys. It's like whatever was in the past, that crap doesn't matter anymore. I know walk-off field goals to beat Alabama, that sort of thing, and that's what we're going to do here. And I think that mentality is big, but also he's a great teacher. I mean, he really is a great schematic guy. You saw it on the Jameer Khan block punt against Michigan State. It was really cool to hear everybody within the program describe that week. Like, Eckler basically shows them in the meeting, like, we're going to do this. Michigan State's going to counter with this. We're going to do this. They're going to do that. He's going to block this kick. And you have, like, coaches and different players, like, reciting it to each other Thursday. Like, man, Jameer's going to block that freaking kick. It's just a matter of when. And there it happened. So, I mean, that's a perfect example, though, of, like, what he's built, where the whole building's talking about something specific that's going to happen in a game that they just know it's going to be a success for them.
Brutzy, where do you land?
A, easy. I was disappointed you didn't give the full Tim Miles quote.
What was that?
Hexing and vexing.
You can do it. It's okay. But,
Okay. Bullshit. Hexing and vexing bullshit. That's the quote. I think I'm definitely an A. And I think, like Brian said, like there's like a certain amount of swagger now about special teams, which I think it's good to see. Like that's a unit that for so long has just been kind of like the dog that's been kicked around a little bit too much. And like Jameer Khan knew, like, he's going to block that punt. And all week leading up to the Maryland game, it was the same thing. They felt like they had the opportunity to go in and return a kick in a big way, and they went in and did it. Like, I think there's a little bit of just kind of confidence and swagger that he brings too, that I think it's okay to play with that, especially if you're able to back it up, and they definitely have.
I think you got to land A+ for me. I don't know really what else they could do that you could expect them to do that they haven't done through the first 6 games, right?
I'm a tough grader, okay?
I know.
I
was surprised. I was surprised.
There's no such thing as perfection.
To me, 2 free kicks out of bounds and a couple of bad punts, one of which was into the wind from a freshman who's never played football before. That doesn't really amount to knock it much off the plus line for me, especially given everything that happened last year for Nebraska, where just a 23-yard field goal wasn't necessarily a given. So, and you add things that you didn't expect either. Think back to the Michigan State game where they used the wind to their advantage. They'd use the short kick, force a guy who isn't used to fielding the football to field the football, and they steal a possession from Michigan State. And that was one of the forgotten plays of that fourth quarter. So, A+ for me on special teams.
So a cumulative grade of about A. I'm bringing it down.
Nick Handley, not impressed.
I'm not. I'm just, A-. Hey, I'll tell you what. If you would have told me during fall camp, at the beginning of fall camp, that they would be A- at midway point, I'd be.
Nobody would have expected that.
I'd be extremely excited.
Hoping for a C over here.
Well, we still haven't got to the defense of the offense yet.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how I'm going to grade that. But I do want to go to the defense because there's complexity in grading this unit. I think that what maybe some of their shortcomings are, they've obviously got strengths on this team, and I think they've played to those strengths. I think I'm just going to use this example of how much Brennan Sorsby struggled in that game at Arrowhead Stadium, and then you look at what he and Cincinnati have done since. To me, that was impressive, and they continued. Other than Malik Washington, you've seen that secondary really stymie any opponent's passing game, Michigan included, in the only loss. So I think that position group has been fantastic. That was supposed to be a strength. I think the linebacking core has actually been, in my opinion, a pretty solid group. And this is where I do go to coaching, too. And I think Rob Dvorak might be one of the most underrated coaches when it comes to anybody on the defensive side of the ball in the Big Ten period. But that group, I think, is pretty consistent, even keel. And then we've obviously seen some issues with the defensive line, but you can kind of see that coming a little bit. When I look at the defense at the halfway point, I actually look at them as a C+. BC, where are you at?
I'll give them a B-, actually. Maybe I'm grading on a curve a little bit there. I don't know, because when they were playing Cincinnati in the first half, even though we write every day about these guys and everybody on the roster, when I was looking at who was on the field, I was like, I don't know this team. Like, it just felt so bizarre, like without Ty and Nash, and you're sort of adjusting, and you're like, how are they going to figure this out? And they did manage to stop Sorsby enough. I know they got the run game going, but I like how they've responded to adversity and challenges they've met. Like, Maryland is a good example. It was 24-24, like early third quarter, not a good day going for them. And they really played pretty good football the rest of the game. Like, I mean, you think about, as Schaefer mentioned, the Desan McCullough play, which could be one of the plays of the season so far in how that shifted the game. And, Michigan State getting after Childs, I think, to really get in his head from the first series, and they had 12 TFLs that game. The reason I knocked their grade down in B- is Michigan. I mean, just the three explosives that covered 166 yards. And that wasn't all D-line. That was as much bad fits and bad angles as the D-line on those plays. And if this season, if they keep winning some of these close games and they're kind of in the big conversation in November, we're actually going to look back at that Michigan game and like a one or two run defensive plays is like, man, I wish they would have had it in order then, because it could have been a different story.
Well, I'm going to go B- as well. It comes back to me to just, has it been perfect the whole time? No, but they made the plays when it counted. And I don't even know if you can really say anybody expected the secondary to be as good as it has been this year. You look at 5 opponent pass plays of 20 yards or more. That leads the nation. The next closest FBS teams have allowed 7 plays of 20 yards or more, and Nebraska has only allowed 12 plays of 20 yards or more all season. So, with the exception of that Michigan game, they've really limited the big play throughout the entirety of this year. There's been shortcomings in the run defense area, but I think overall, B-, given what they lost up front. You have to feel at least a little bit confident in that going forward, and see how some of the young pieces like Vincent Shavers and some of the guys who've had to step into new roles can fill down the stretch and develop.
Brunsey?
I'll go with B. I'll be a little bit more positive about where they're at now. It feels like the secondary's been a nice surprise. Like, they've been really good. I think you're right. I don't know that anybody really expected that they would be this good. I think defensive line, if you look at that group too, it's a lot of new guys and new roles, a lot of young guys that have never been relied on before that are kind of very slowly, as the season's gone along, I think trending in a positive direction. You'd like to see a lot more kind of splash plays and pass rush and getting a little bit more pressure on quarterbacks. But I think for the most part, that group seems to be improving a little bit. And I think the linebacker core too, they've had to figure out just the personnel that they want to use. I mean, you're seeing a little bit more Dawson Merritt than you saw before. Watson Trent's been in and out of the lineup, just kind of based on who they're playing. And trying to figure out, how much they're going to get out of Javen Wright, because I think he's been kind of a little bit of an X factor in terms of what he can do and how his health will hold up and that kind of thing. So I don't know. I mean, I guess I was maybe expecting really bad things from the front seven. Maybe that's not fair, but I think for the most part they've hung in and given Nebraska a chance to win for the most part with those. I mean, we're basically talking 3 plays against Michigan, right? Like Brian said, and this season looks completely different.
Schaefer, are you going to make me the harshest grader again on this one?
I mean, I'm at a B- as well. We don't all have the standards that you have apparently for this team, but
I'm a jerk.
for me, a lot of it is that they've played pretty good complementary football. I think the areas where I still have a little bit of concern, we're not seeing takeaways at the level that I think they want them at. The havoc plays haven't quite been there. They've been a little more conservative with blitzing than I kind of expected at this juncture. But I think some of that is they're pretty confident that if they can sit back there in coverage, the quarterback isn't going to dissect it, because John Butler has put together some pretty good coverage schemes. Now, Malik Washington had the best day we've seen a quarterback have. We'll see if Drake Lindsey and some of these guys that follow, I don't think Preston Stone will, but Jaden Maeva comes to mind. He's one of the most efficient passers in the country. That's going to be a big challenge for Nebraska in November. What does that look like? So that's where you'd like to see a little bit more havoc, a little more takeaways, a little bit more pass rush. But overall, I mean, I think there's a real chance that if we're doing this in December and we're doing end of season grades, like they could be a B+. I think the arrow is up for Nebraska's defense for sure.
Okay, I'm mean again.
Mr. Negative.
I know. I may not start with the offense. I might let you guys start with the offense, and I'll gather my thoughts. And you
don't have to stick with the grade
Live
you wrote
edit,
down.
Edit in real time.
I already got a number in my head right now, but
D+.
I mean, it's not an F, I'll tell you that. But thank you, Ken.
No, look at that.
There you
There's
go,
the
my man. Offense, though, hey, okay, let's give some of the hard numbers. 41 points per game. They're at 450 yards roughly per game. 310 passing per game. 140 rushing per game. Those numbers on itself look good. It's an improvement that you can see, obviously, a heavy discrepancy between pass and run, but that's what to expect out of a Dana Holgorsen team and led by a quarterback that you want to throw the football and a pro-style quarterback. Obviously, the offensive line, we talked a little bit about that. They've had some struggles. BC, I think you're right, though. I think what you saw in Maryland, especially the running game, that can be an improvement right there. I'll start, and I'm giving them a hard C. I think it's a C. I think this is a C. I think this is a C offense. I think it's an offense, though, that, like you just said, Shafe.
Like, as in you see it and you hate it,
I see it, yeah. Because this was, in a lot of ways last year, a D-. There were, until really towards the end of the year, there were so many moments where Nebraska offensively, it looked hard for them to score. They made offense look very, very hard. That's not the case. There are some shortcomings, but I think that's a group that by the end of the year, I wouldn't be shocked if we're talking in that B+ range. So I'm going to start with a C, but I see that arrow moving up. Grant.
Okay, I'm going B. We talked a lot in the preseason. We talked in the preseason, is Dana Holgorsen truly worth 10 points per game improvement or more? And he's been worth 17.5, in addition to the other positional upgrades that they've made. So that is the 4th best improvement nationwide in terms of scoring on a per-game average compared to a year ago. They're averaging 91 yards of offense, more per game than a year ago, and rank in the top 30 nationally in scoring. That's 11th. Passing offense, that's 9th, and total offense, which is 27th. So you'd like to see the turnover margin, that's taken a step back over the last couple of weeks. And that's one of the things they did really, really well through the first 4 games. And it's probably why I have them at a B as opposed to a B+. But they've been balanced. They have playmakers. They've had explosiveness. And you can get to a point where you go into these games like Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota this week, and Northwestern, and expect them to score 30. And feel comfortable doing that, which is not anywhere close to where they were a year ago or even 2 or 3 years ago.
Shafe, are you in the A's on this one?
No,
Okay.
no.
I mean, might as well be.
I'm at a B-, so I'm between you guys. Closer to Grant, who's more correct than you are. But
I mean, yeah.
a lot of it for me, Nebraska's offense has taken a step forward. They put together back-to-back 30-point performances in Big Ten play, which I don't think they did last year. I honestly think his performances with the Michigan State, Maryland, I'd have to look this up, but I think those are 3 of his 5 best, for Matt Rule for points total in a Big Ten contest. And those have all happened so far this season. Wisconsin is their high, the watermark from last year, but I think they could top that. I don't know what game it'll be, but we could see Nebraska in the 40s. In Big Ten play. I think a lot of it really comes down to this offense has moved the ball. They've never had an issue moving the football. They've actually had a drive in every game this season, including the non-conference, where they've turned it over on downs in opponents' territory.
And 3 of those 4 in the last few weeks have been the opening possession. And that's been the knock, right?
Yeah.
Is you can't finish some of these drives.
Right, and so there's a lot of room for improvement there, but I think you can see the tenets of what looks good here. I love the balance. I love that they have 5 guys right around 26 receptions from, I think, 19 to 26. And we're talking about Dane Key, Ja'Cory Barney, Isaiah Hunter, Emmett Johnson, and Luke Lindenmeyer. So they have incredible balance. I think it's very difficult to defend how Nebraska can attack you. And if BC's right and they've unlocked some things running the football and the offensive line starts to move forward, because I think this is a big part of that conversation. I felt like their 5 best linemen are the guys that they have playing now with Gattulo on the right side and Pritchett at left tackle. We need, assuming Pritchett's healthy, allow that to grow a little bit, allow them to gel a little bit. We could see a better version of the offensive line, which would enhance the offense overall. Grant's right, you got to cut down on the turnover margin. But again, kind of like with the defense, I feel like the best football is still potentially to come for this offense. Like they're working through some of their mistakes, but there's a world where this is a really, really tough group to stop week in and week out.
Brunsey, what say you?
I'll say B-. I think, the red zone struggles at times. I think that's been an issue, and I think that might be something that, as you get further into the season, could hurt you in tight games that Nebraska's going to be playing. As I said earlier, I think they've gotten better athletically around Dylan Raiola with the skill position players. Emmett Johnson's been great. I think you need to see a little bit more from the offensive line. And like Schaefer said, I think sometimes, as coaches, you just need to kind of say, okay, what are we willing to accept in terms of the pre-snap stuff for getting your best 5 on the field. I think they've done that with Pritchett on the left side and Gattulo on the right. And I don't know, I mean, even position groups that were, I would say, are a little bit of a question mark. I mean, coming into the season, you didn't know what you had at tight end, especially with Fedoni leaving and the Markway injury. And, Luke Lindemeyer's been great. So I'll say B- with an opportunity to improve that if you can be a little bit more efficient and keep the turnovers down. The turnovers thing, that's probably not talked about enough. I mean, they finally are valuing the ball, and that's been a big thing for them early on.
BC?
Yeah, I'll give them a B- as well. Sort of graded on a curve with the defense. I think with the offense, it's actually the other way, where like Holgerson is like so alluring. Yeah. He's like the star pupil that you hold him to a higher standard. But I was just looking at like the yards per play. I mean, they're at 6.71 right now, which is 24th in the country. Last year is 5.24. So I understand that can go down a little bit as you go through the conference, but you're basically a full yard and a half per play better than a season ago. And I do like how in Dana's offense, they do seem to eventually figure it out. Like, it can feel like sort of a frustrating day at the office, but then you look up at the points, and it's about points, not yards, ma'am, Bo Pelini once said. And Dana Holgerson's offense gets points. I mean, obviously it's inflated somewhat because of what you did to Akron and Houston Christian. But when you get 34 on the road against Maryland on a day where you turn it over 3 times, and you get 38 against Michigan State, when honestly that game I feel like was favorable elements to the Spartans because of the wind. I think that sort of took away from Nebraska's offense for a couple quarters. So I'd say B-, but I do think there's a lot more out for them, and a lot of it is going to hinge on if that O-line, which I'm not saying they're going to take that step. I'm just intrigued if last Saturday was a launching point for the front 5, and we can see it on Friday.
Well, and that's the thing too, BC, is because you can really point back to at least the last 3 games and say the offense left probably about 10 points out there, and they still scored over 30. Yeah. And so, I mean, if you're looking for encouragement for what's to come, it's like they have not hit their ceiling.
And, I mean, we talk all offseason like, oh, they're going to be great at wide receiver this year. They finally figured that out. You still got to give it its due that it actually happened. Like, because for years we've said that all summer and spring, like, I think they can have 6 to 8 deep. And by the time you get to this point in the season or November, there's like 2 guys. Billy Kemp is limping around as like your second wide receiver.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
And
The
not
5'10" wide receiver 1.
Yeah, not to knock Billy, but I mean that was the situation. Then you see like Isaiah Hunter out there, and you're like, okay, how is this guy not higher rated in the portal in the rankings?
Was he a steal?
Yeah.
Relative to Key.
I mean, he really was. And Dane Key, I know like some people are like, where is he when he didn't have a catch in the Michigan State game? But he showed up when it's counted. You know, he had the big 4th down touchdown against Cincinnati, and besides his TD last week, there was a 2nd and 16 when they were down 7 points in the 4th quarter last week, where he caught it behind him, got the first down. That's the type of play where you can look back at. I don't know if they win the game if he doesn't make that kind of play.
I don't want to go through this next part really fast, but there's some steak coming, so
okay.
we're gonna eat some of that. But I do want to get to our MVPs, offensively, defensively, special teams. Let's start with our defensive MVP, Michael Bruns. Who is your defensive MVP?
I will go with Desan McCullough
Okay.
as mine. I think he's been disruptive enough. I think he's been better against the run than maybe I was expecting. And, I mean, that's part of the reason I think why Willis McGahee's looking at a red shirt this year is just because McCullough's held up so well. He's always good for, I think, 3-4 splash plays a game. You're kind of like, okay, this is like shot out of a cannon, big tackle for loss. And I think that was something that the defense really needed to add to kind of bring a different dynamic to it. So he's mine.
BC.
I'll go Sierra Wright. I think he's a heartbeat guy for that defense, maybe the whole team. He's the one that held them to a standard when Michigan State scored with the backup QB, like, let's do better. And you got to give the DBs their due for really an incredible stat. Like, and I know they're number 1 in pass defense, but the fact that they've only allowed 5 explosives, and prior to this week, only 1 pass play of more than 20 yards, like nobody in the country was close to that. And so someone needs to be represented or that group needs to have someone that we highlight. And I would say Sierra Wright is as good as any.
Shafe?
What I think is great is that both of those answers, I think you can definitely go with those or other guys. And I'm going to go with Williams Nwaneri because I wonder what Nebraska's defensive line looks like if he doesn't emerge the way that he did immediately against Cincinnati. I go back to seeing him on the field, and Brian was talking about that. You know, you spend all offseason talking about this team, and then they're playing, and you got your roster, or you're looking at it online, and you're just kind of like, oh, okay, so he's playing here. And then Nwaneri's shown up. The best football is still to come for him. I think he has given Nebraska a little bit more of a pass rushing offense off the edge. He's got a presence there. I think he's going to continue to get better. Other guys have probably had a bigger impact, but I do think if they didn't have Nwaneri, Nebraska's defensive line would be scarier right now than even where some people have it.
They'd certainly be missing a lot of flash. I mean, he is the closest thing to a reincarnation of Randy Gregory that we've probably seen in the last decade. From frame and all those sorts of things. For me, I'm going Javen Wright, who was your guy before the season. But
I love me some Javen Wright.
currently leads the team in tackles for a loss, and that's a guy in the linebacking core that was a contributor a year ago, but there wasn't a lot of weight on him. And there is a lot more of that this year, and not a lot of guys go to college for 7 years, but he did and has. And he's seen the results of that work start to pay off this year. And so that's a guy that I think Nebraska will see more and more plays of down the stretch, especially as he started to heat up over the last few weeks.
And I think all these are great candidates. I think Javen Wright, I've been high on him, and I think he's going to be a major impact this entire season. Seeing him healthy for once is great. Even what Rex Guthrie has done, but I'm going to Sean Singleton because of his impact in games. I love how he got the 2 big interceptions, but as John, the easiest ones he's ever going to have. I mean, that was gifted to him, but I think his impact, especially in this game coming up, ability to stop the run, ability to obviously defend in the secondary as well. This is the type of year, I think, as him being healthy and going through some of the injuries, he needed to have to be noticed at the next level scout. So I'm going to go with Deshaun Singleton. We're going to wrap back around offensively. Offensive MVP, I'm going with Emmett Johnson, and I think it's kind of self-explanatory. He's got an extra gear. I think with what Dana Holgorsen has identified with his style, you look at where he ranks amongst the Big Ten rushing leaders right there near the top. If you would have told me that at the beginning of the season, I would not have believed you. But you can see him gaining more confidence and I think familiarity with what they want him to do. And I think he is able to adjust his workload too. He's just been a bright spot that I wasn't 100% on how that was going to impact this offense on the whole. So I'm going with Emmett Johnson.
Yeah, I got to go Dylan Raiola, which is maybe obvious or maybe thinking outside of the box relative to what everybody else will say. But look, none of this works if he doesn't take the steps that he needs to take to refine his body and mind over the offseason. None of this works if he doesn't snap out of whatever funk he and the rest of the offense were in against Michigan State in that third and fourth quarter. And if he doesn't do it again and make the plays that he needs to make, despite throwing 3 interceptions against Maryland last week, I mean, nothing works offensively if he doesn't meet expectations, and he has to this point. He hasn't exceeded them, but he's been what I've expected to this point in the season. And again, the offense doesn't go if he doesn't. So Raiola is my offensive MVP.
Yeah, I mean, to get out of that funk, they went to Ja'Cory Barney, who I think is the most valuable player in Nebraska's offense. I think every defensive coordinator has to spend a lot of time figuring out the various ways Dana Holgorsen can use him. I know that Isaiah Hunter has more yardage. I think he has 1 less touchdown than Dane Key and then Hunter as well. But I just think his value and what he does to teams defensively, the way you have to prepare for him, the way that Nebraska can use him, I just think they're a better team when Ja'Cory Barney's involved. I know he's coming off a relatively quiet game against Maryland. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he leads them in receptions or yards on Friday against Minnesota.
I'm surprised you gave MVPs, Nick, the way you're rating.
I mean, nobody on the offense deserves MVP.
Nobody.
Yeah, I thought you
You've
would
got to
just,
at least be a B grade to get that.
I thought you would just say play better. I think
Turner Corcoran.
I think Dylan is probably the answer, but Grant summed it up well. So I'll give my time to Isaiah Hunter, who I just think that was a special kid to get out of the portal. He's just got an electricity about him. He's a gamer. Like, when he first arrived here, I don't think he impressed him a lot in mat drills, actually. So he's one of those guys, like, it wasn't necessarily happening behind the scenes. Then they got on the field, and Dana's like, okay, he can play. Mm-hmm. And he's just a guy who's not scared of the lights. I would expect him to make a couple big plays on Friday night. And you think about his catch at Arrowhead in the end zone before the half after Shavers caused the fumble, one of the 5 or 6 biggest plays of the season, I think, and obviously he has the 2 big plays lately. So I think it's probably Dylan, because I agree with everything Grant said, but Isaiah has been a huge development for this team.
I was going to go Emmett Johnson, but I'll make a case for Luke Lindenmeyer. I mean, if you didn't have him in there right now, I'm not sure what that tight end position looks like. He's had to take on a lot more blocking-wise after Markway got hurt. Carter Nelson is just not there yet as a blocker. I think that's one thing that's maybe holding him back at that spot. Heinrich Harburg's playing better, but still, I mean, it's a quarterback playing tight end. Luke Lindenmeyer especially when you consider that he basically wasn't part of the game plan until, November last year. So he's really kind of been a revelation, I think, there.
Special teams. This could go a bunch of different ways. Let's go back around. Brunsey, you left off with offense. Why don't you kick us off with special teams MVP?
Besides Mike Eckler, I'll go with Ja'Cory Barney. I mean, I think he's just kind of got that it factor with punt returning. DeMornay Personnel had it. The best punt returners have it. Just a good feel for where they are on the field and kind of finding the daylight. And I think finally having somebody to empower him to basically say you're going to return punts whether you like it or not, that was huge. So Ja'Cory Barney.
BC.
Yeah, Ja'Cory's the answer, I think, just because you always feel like something explosive could happen. He's even had a few more yards that should be on his plate than there are. That said, Cunanan, I'll say Cunanan just because to be different than Bruns. I like to be different than Bruns. And
No, you don't. You guys drove together.
yeah, that's true. I need a ride back. But he missed the one against Michigan. He missed that one kick, but everything else has been like dead center so far. And I knock on this table, but that whole operation, it's good to see the snaps are on time, and you feel confident they're going to make a kick again. And it's been a while since it was like that.
Shafe?
It's Kevin Gallick because we've returned back to not needing to know the long snapper's name. That's the whole resume. You don't need to know his
How many
name.
people in here remembered his name? See,
Yeah,
there you go. To your point. Yes.
Dang it.
I like
That's
it.
where I was going. Literally,
okay.
I was just going to ask, show of hands, who here actually knows the name of Nebraska's long snapper? And that's all you need to know right then and there. And look, you spent too much time talking about it last year, and you should be talking about it pretty much zero other than these sorts of conversations. And so for them to go and recognize that need, acquire the right person, and then to have that person deliver and make things like extra points and field goals within 40 yards and punts routine, that I think is probably even more valuable than what Barney's provided, even though it's less visible.
All of those are great answers. It's hard not to go with Ja'Cory Barney because I think anytime that ball's in the air and you see him not fair catching it, you're thinking big things are going to happen. We haven't seen that since DPE. I mean, so that to me is awesome. But I'm with you. I'm going Kyle Cunanan because that to me was something that I thought was one of the most simplistic elements of special teams that had eluded Nebraska for so long. That inability to just hit the makeable field goals and the amount of one-score games that Nebraska has found themselves in, that inability to be able to move the football and get 0 points or be forced to go for it on fourth down because you do not trust your kicker, I think was vital. Kyle Cunanan, 9 of 10. He's hit the ones you needed him to hit. He was huge in that Cincinnati game as well. So, yeah, I'll go with Kyle Cunanan, but I think we'd all agree Ja'Cory Barney is whether you picked him or not is a major part of this. All right, this is the part of the show where, and I see Matt Burdett of Omaha Steaks, he's bringing some of those samples around. We've got everything from ribeye crown steaks. We've got, what else are we sampling here?
Whiskey marinated.
Whiskey marinated steaks as well. And filet mignon. So enjoy that. We're going to enjoy that. Brunsey's going to watch and grade how we eat that as well. But while we're doing that, get your raffle tickets back out. We got some glassware from Kros Strain. They're going to hook you up with some cool Kros Strain logoed glassware. The winning number.
Oh.
What do you got, Grant?
Oh, okay. All right. The winning number for the Kros Strain glassware is 396415. 396415.
All right.
All right.
We're going to have you go see. We're going to have you go see Tina up at the bar, and she will hook you up with your glassware. So just go to the bar, go ask for Tina. Congratulations. Thanks for coming out. And then while we're eating Omaha Steaks, we're going to give away that last $100 gift card to Omaha Steaks.
There's Black Friday sales going on right now?
There is God, very good, Grant. Why don't you read that Black Friday sale while I'm pulling out the winning number right now?
Folks, Omaha Steaks early Black Friday sale is going on right now. 50% off site-wide. And an additional 20% off on select favorites. So great time right now if you're looking to work ahead for Christmas. for dad or anybody else that loves steak, not exclusive to men by any stretch. But if you're looking for a Christmas gift and you want to get ahead of it right now, great time to strike while the iron is hot with Omaha Steaks.
And the winning number for that $100 gift card, you got it right up here next to my man Cam, is 396-394. 396-394. All right. There you go.
Sweet.
Again, don't throw away your raffle tickets. We're going to be doing that throughout the final hour of this show. And I hope everybody is enjoying the Omaha Steaks. Big thanks to Matt, his crew at Omaha Steaks. They are fantastic. Oh, do we have it? All right.
Here we go.
Doug's bringing it
Sampling
over.
time.
Do we have the old 96er? Well, you should have some of this too. All right, so we got all these labeled.
And then while we're eating, I guess, give Brunt something to do. What do you think,
Brunt's had
Mike,
a big meal coming up.
as we kind of, and I'll go out of order a little bit on the sheet, Nick, so sorry about this.
No, that's fine. You're good.
But we got men's hoops coming up, BYU, Nebraska, and it's BC's area a little bit. But what do you make of where things are at in college basketball, specifically with name, image, and likeness, and the clearinghouse, how effective it's been, and where Nebraska's at relative to the team they're scrimmaging on Saturday that has a $20 million roster reportedly compared to Nebraska's, which is less than that.
Yeah, not $20 million. Yeah, it's I mean, it's almost like you're kind of playing different sports. It'll be interesting to see what that kind of money looks like on the floor. And I mean, I guess credit to Nebraska for taking on an exhibition game like that. I mean, it's going to be a really nice measuring stick for new roster, guys coming back, rink masked. So I don't know. Like I'm eager to kind of see what this team looks like on the floor because I think they added some guys that can shoot it. BC can talk about it more, but guys that can shoot it, guys that up the athleticism a little bit too, and just getting masked back healthy. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, it'll be exciting Saturday. I don't know if we'll be back in town from the football game or not yet, but just to see the reaction to Rink taking the floor again. I mean, that process of a 15-month rehab, there was a point where he didn't know if he was ever going to play basketball again. And so that'll be emotional, I think, for him to step back on the floor in a jersey. And he just means so much. Like, I mean, he was third team All Big Ten 2 years ago by the coaches. And that's a pretty big honor because the coaches, they have to put it up on the grease board. Who's like the problem for us? Like who really stresses us out? And Rink is that because he can shoot it from deep, but he's also a great facilitator. Like you can run some of those back cuts that a couple years ago they got to Tominaga, for some easy baskets.
He was really the biggest missing piece for Nebraska a year ago, and I think people forgot about him, which is crazy to me. But he was kind of everything for them when it comes to running the offense. I mean, he was the linchpin for them, and so I kind of push back on some folks that think that Nebraska will operate in a similar way or will be the same team as it was a year ago, because I think you leave that piece of the equation out of it, and I think that's probably the biggest variable.
Yeah, they're in the NCAA tournament again if he's on that squad, but it is what it is, and hopefully he can get his feet under him pretty fast. A young guy I'm really excited to see is Braden Frager, Lincoln native. Been a lot of talk about him this offseason. He's kind of a do the dirty work kind of guy, a little bit like, I'm not saying he's going to be like Jawan Gary, but he can get some of that stuff done for them. He can shoot it probably better than Gary. And this is going to be a fun team shooting the ball. They're going to have some nights where they just shoot some teams out of the gym. The big question is going to be, and they've said this, is the athleticism. Are they going to have enough of that when you get into conference play? And, also, they're going to have to do the dirty work. They're going to have to get the rebounds, and get those 50-50 balls to sort of make up for some of that, I think. So it's going to be exciting to see Price Sanford, the Iowa transfer. He's been shooting it really well all offseason. And, there's Jamarcus Lawrence is going to start on Saturday, and Cale Jacobson's going to start. So that tells you that he's sort of picking up where he left off in the crown.
Okay, so while you were talking the whole time, I was eating all three there. So while I'm talking, if you guys want more, please grab more. The Private Reserve Ribeye Crown is phenomenal. Now, I want to make it very clear. The tender filet mignon and the marinated top sirloin is also very, very good. I had all three. In fact, I probably took a little too much because I was. Thank you, by the way, for covering. I needed 5 minutes to basically eat that and enjoy that. But unbelievable. And again, there's so much going on at Omaha Steaks with that Black Friday deal, early Black Friday deal that I want to tell you about as well. But the ribeye crown, and I know a lot of you folks are having a chance to sample that out there. You're talking about tender. It's bursting with just absolutely juicy. Now, the whiskey marinated, you could taste a little bit of the sweetness on that as well. But all of these things
really good.
bursting with flavor. Would you say that was bursting with flavor, Grant?
What a great descriptor.
Thank you.
The Omaha Steak seasoning, that flies under the radar too, right? Like
It works on everything.
it's really good. So don't pass up on that. If you get the chance to grab yourself some. Take advantage of that Black Friday sale. And where to next, Mr. Handley?
Current website deal, by the way, too. They have a brand new landing page at omahasteaks.com/GoBigRed because Omaha Steaks is a proud partner of Husker Athletics. You can get Omaha Steaks at Memorial Stadium. You can get it at the Devaney Center. So where you're watching Husker Athletics, you can enjoy Omaha Steaks. Big thank you to Matt because all of this was fantastic. Guys, again, don't be shy. No, we're being a little bit modest on the beer because we want to have a normal conversation. But trust me, that steak, it's not gonna cloud your judgment whatsoever. But there you go, Schaefer. That's the Mike Schaefer I know. That goes back to our days in Columbus at good old Sahara. But as we continue talking a little bit basketball, but I also want to get into volleyball. And Grant, obviously, you as the voice of the Omaha Supernovas, which here on 660 AM, Walnut Media as well. We'll have the season starting in January. Looking forward to that. But look, we all know how dominant this volleyball team is. It has been. But I got to say, with a coaching transition, to see this thing be as smooth as it has been to the level of dominance. Now, I get it. They have a great team. But I don't care what. Look at Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. There were a couple of hiccups early on. They look like they're probably back on track. But when you have that transition of power between a guy like John Cook and a former player who is obviously a great coach in her own right at Louisville, to see this team not only not miss a beat, but to maybe be as good as we've seen to where now, I was talking to Abby Barmore from On 3 saying, you'd be disappointed if they're not in Kansas City for the Final Four. And she had a good point. She goes, you'd be disappointed if they're not winning a national championship. But I think that's legitimate expectation based on how they've played.
Yeah, I mean, how often have we seen it? I mean, recently, within the last, 3 years, the favored son or daughter coming home is not a guarantee.
Yep.
And to say, and don't get me wrong when I say this, but they're almost boring right now, right? Because they go into every game, they've swept 7 straight. It's a fun product, don't get me wrong. It's obviously awesome to watch, but you don't expect them to lose. In fact, a lot of these games, you don't expect them to lose a set either. And so that's a luxury to be in that position to where, you look ahead to the Wisconsin match, and you look ahead to Penn State, and you look ahead to a potential clash with Texas, depending on how the bracket plays out. But other than that, there's not a lot of drama in almost any of these matches, and the only drama you're looking for is what new benchmark does the team set from an attendance standpoint and from an individual performance standpoint. Like, to have people replying to national media outlets, and this is anecdotal, but personalities that are national media personalities in the world of volleyball saying, does there need to be an asterisk put next to this team because of how good it is and because of the second level of that lineup being able to probably be a top 10 team in its own right? I mean, that is something that you really can't say or see very often with Nebraska. And so I hope people take advantage and appreciate the boring while it's here before there are more matches during the regular season that are a little bit more drama-filled and nail-bitery. If that's a word.
It's a word. We can make it a word. But, I mean, look, we talk football, we talk basketball, baseball. the volleyball team, I always find it interesting when we get into these conversations because it's kind of how I felt about Nebraska football in the 90s, where you just expect the highest standard. So when something, maybe it's a 5-setter against Creighton, or it's heaven forbid they don't sweep a team, we're like, whoa, okay. It gets your attention, where you can start nitpicking dominant performances. I think we're beyond that with not only this particular team, but with this program. And again, I go back to just how amazing it is to see one coach hand the baton to another one, and it somehow even got better.
I think you could make a case that Danny Busboom Kelly is a perfect coach for this team. You see her attitude with it. She knows they're great. She doesn't shy away from the fact that they're great. She encourages them to go out and to dominate. There's no tamping down of expectations. She thinks they should win every match. She thinks that they should win every point. She wants them to play that way. I've enjoyed just kind of her candor with the whole thing. Like she is very fun to just kind of sit and listen to, because she's a spectator to this greatness like all of us, even though she's there and making decisions and everything else. But you see her after some of these ridiculous points that Nebraska wins, and it's like she's back in her playing days, just chumming it up with the other people on the bench. Like it's been a lot of fun. She's a perfect fit for this program, and the big question is, will they get it done in January? And so that's we'll see her late December. I forget when it is now. They moved it around.
Yeah, it's like I think December 18th.
Yeah.
I think is the Final Four. That's off the top of my head, firing from the hip, but.
Love it. If you guys are done with the steak, we can give it to Cam and let Cam have some, because this is the hardest working man right here. As we will continue on, we're going to get back to football here. And again, if you
we're very big on the whiskey marinated top sirloin.
Okay.
That's very much where we were.
Fine. We got the okay. Yeah, this.
I'll leave that for Cam.
The ribeye crown is. This is not hyperbole. This is the best steak I've ever had. This is unbelievable. And so I'm gonna ask a question, then I'm gonna eat this. Okay. We're gonna get back into football here, and we're gonna pick up from where we left off in that first segment in hour one. And by the way, if you're just joining us, this is Huskers Live on Tap. We're going to be doing this again in December, so we hope to see you guys out here. Obviously, we'll be talking some volleyball, might be talking some Final Four volleyball, and where the Huskers will be headed for a bowl game. But appreciate you all being out here, and we are going to do more drawings here for all kinds of different things here. Make sure you grab some foam fingers, koozies from Boomer Radio, your home for Husker sports. Appreciate, again, everybody being out here. So if you weren't here right out of the gate, we talked about the big story this week, and that is Matt Rule and Penn State. So, again, I want to go around the horn on this one. Just confidence level of Matt Rule being a percentage that Matt Rule is Nebraska's football coach in 2026 and not Penn State. Shafe, start with you. A percentage that Matt Rule is the coach in 2026 for Nebraska.
I'm probably at like 30% right now. I mean, I think he's a leading candidate at Penn State. Not necessarily the first phone call that they make, but I don't know that it gets past him. I think it's going to be tough for him to turn down that job if he's actually offered it. And so if they aren't able to get an Urban Meyer, and I don't even know that these are necessarily targets, but if they're not, I'm assuming you move on from James Franklin, you're shooting for the moon. You're not moving on from James Franklin to immediately offer Matt Rule. And so I assume there's some other names out there potentially. But I do think that, if he gets offered that job, I think he's going to end up going. So I'm only at 30%, which is probably going to be the lowest amongst us.
Yeah, BC?
I'll say 75% that he's back here. And part of that, part of that.
There's a little bit of a disparity there.
No, but
Look who's the Handley now, Schaefer.
Somebody had to be an hour two. Thank you, Shafe. I love you.
Part of that's based if you're doing betting odds on. I don't know for sure that he's going to be the pick, like that he's Penn State's pick. I know that's out there that's where the steam is right now. But I was also thinking the other day about, and I'm not thinking about this like optimistically or anything. I was just thinking, trying to be unbiased about it. Like, how often when you see a job opening, does the first name that everybody brings up for it actually end up being that guy? And a lot of times it's not that. There's a surprise or something that happens, and you know, some things have to work out too. Like I would think if Nebraska loses Friday, you'll see it start to lose a little steam, and it might not with Pat Kraft, who matters, but like publicly it'll lose steam and all that. And then there's the other side of it. What if Nebraska really gets it rolling and is like playing toward something significant like into December? Then it would be hard for him to leave. So I think because of all those factors, and then even if he was offered it, I do think he would have a tough decision. I know home is home, and it's hard to pass up home, but we've also seen some coaches who have found that, and we have a case study that was very close to us, have found that difficult. So I think Rule's the type of guy who thinks about that. Like he will process, like, it is nice to go home. I wore a Penn State jersey when I was 3 years old, but there is that factor of that can be difficult to go back to the place, and if you don't succeed quite how you want it, it kind of stains it a little bit, you know?
I think I got to go 80% he's back. I think I just have a hard time seeing him leaving, especially given sort of the comments that Dylan made on Tuesday. And I know it's all meaningless. Like, there was nothing that Matt Rule could have possibly said that would have totally put the kibosh on all of this. Even if he said, I'm not interested in the job. I mean, we saw what happened with Lincoln Riley, you know, not even 5 years ago. So I think I have a hard time believing that he would uproot everybody again and move within 3 years. It's part of the business, but I think he likes it here. I think he likes what he's built here, and to suddenly abandon that, even though home is home. And then I also come back to, I don't think the Penn State fan base wants him, and maybe if you have the friendship of Pat Kraft and Matt Rule, that trumps that. But I think he would be a really hard sell to the fan base to make them think that a guy that has less top 10 wins than the guy they fired would be able to take them to the next level that they're looking for, even though I think he probably could do it.
Brunsey, where are you at on this one?
I'm probably at like a 60%. I think probably you go back through some of the things he said about just jobs, and I mean even what he said about Scott Frost at Big Ten Media Days this year. He had a long answer about the challenges of going home and what that means if you don't succeed. And I think he thinks about those things, and I think there's probably still some scars left over from what happened in Carolina. And I think he probably thinks about things a little bit differently, just in terms of jobs and stepping stones and things like that based on what happened there. So that's all part of it. I mean, I think there's things that he's going to try to do and has done to try to kind of drag Nebraska into modern college football as it exists in 2025 and whatever it's going to look like in 5 years in terms of NIL, how you spend money, what matters. I mean, you've already got a $6.5 million grass practice field out there. You've got that huge facility. They're taking chefs on road trips. I mean, like, all of those things are things that he's wanted to do. I think if he stays, there's going to be more of that. But I do think he legitimately likes Nebraska. I think that he likes what they're building there. I do wonder kind of where he actually does fall in the pecking order of kind of what who that job is potentially going to be offered to.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing with his relationship with Pat Kraft, but also what type of influence Pat Kraft is getting from the money people on who they want to. We just assume that it makes too much sense that Matt Rule would be one of the top candidates, and I don't think that it's not the case, but is he number one? Is he number two? Are we talking semantics here? I'm at 70% that Matt Rule is back here. And I thought, how he always uses that buzzword, intentionality. I think there was some intentionality of his opportunity on Monday to address. He knew he was going to get asked that question. And I think he used that opportunity to address where he wants to see Nebraska football become, what he wants to see from an investment standpoint of elite spending. He likes to use that word elite, but he used that in the context of the biggest spenders, amongst the very biggest spenders in college football. even though that's not considered the Nebraska way. He's trying to shake things up a little bit when it comes to that. And I think he finally has a little bit of that clout where obviously a school is naturally going to be interested. So you can use that to your advantage. I think for people who thought, well, he didn't squash any of those notions that he would go, well, that doesn't make good business sense. You got to at least not tip your hand yet, because even if he has every intention of staying, he's not going to say that right now because he can get money out of this situation as well. Even though what Schaefer pulled out at the end of his contract, he's going to be owed $12 million in that final year. Extensions are probably coming with just him being linked to this job. But I'm with you guys. I think there is legitimate just comfort here. I think the fact that his wife does have a business in Lincoln, I think that they're growing roots here. He said good things about Penn State, but he also said some pretty good things about his family in Nebraska. But more importantly, he talked about where Nebraska can be on the power structure when it comes to how they spend and how they take football in a very serious manner. And I think Troy Dannon, that was one of those things that if Troy Dannon wasn't already aware of Matt Rule's wish list, he was on Monday. And so I think that relationship's a strong one. I just think that it would take a lot to pull him away from Nebraska based on what he feels that he's built here. So that's where I'm at. So Shafe, yeah, you're the fuddy-duddy of this one. And then when Shafe's right, then we can just say, well, we should have listened to you.
Just pretend like it never happened. That's what
we'll brush over that one. All right, so moving on, we've talked about the halfway point of this season. Nebraska at 5-1, a monster game Friday night up in Minneapolis. A game, of course, you can catch on Boomer Radio on 1490, 97.3, and 660 AM for all the football coverage there, too. I do want to look at this team. A lot of good conversation on what we've liked, what maybe we still see Nebraska falling short of in the first half. Shafe, when you look at the ceiling of this team, at 5-1 currently, you know the schedule, and we've had a chance to see the teams play on the remainder of the schedule. What do you think the realistic ceiling for this team is?
I think realistic 9-3. I have a tough time seeing them go 5-1 on the back half. I certainly don't think they're going to go 6-0. They haven't shown that they can avoid a loss like that. I also think USC looks really good. I mean, it's a team that does things well that's going to challenge Nebraska's defense in a way that hasn't been challenged all year. Now, Nebraska getting that game at home, potentially a night game, the black jerseys that they've never won a game in before. We'll see if that streak breaks. But I have a tough time seeing them, pull that off and then finish thing out. I mean, being 11-1 and being in the college football playoff, I just don't see that. The other part about this, if Nebraska were to go 11-1, Indiana's undefeated, Ohio State's undefeated. Nebraska just sits at home during the Big Ten champion. They've already punched their ticket to the college football playoff, so that maybe not the worst route, but I think 9-3. I think they've got a bugaboo loss somewhere in here. Could be this Friday against Minnesota, but I certainly think they are closer to being where they want to be, but they're not quite there yet as a program.
I think I come in at 10-2. To me, ceiling is the most optimistic outcome, and they're going to drop one down the stretch, and whether it's USC at home or Iowa or just one of these games, eventually, unless they really clean it up and start playing complete games in a week in and week out basis, there is going to be a point where they won't be able to make enough plays in the fourth quarter to come back and win. And so, while it's encouraging to see what they've done over the last 2 weeks, that there are some limiting factors present that will keep them from probably being a college football playoff contender down the stretch, which is fine. It's not necessarily where they need to be, but I think 10-2 is the top end, and if that's if everything goes the way it should.
Brunsey, if you look at the ceiling, and Schaefer now has piqued my interest of, okay, what if they are 9-3, but all of a sudden they are part of the college football conversation? Is that realistic? So where are you at on this ceiling for the remainder of this season?
I mean, I could see anything from 10-2 to, the floor. What's the floor? 7-5. 7-5. That would be the bottom falling out, but I mean that's just kind of where this program is in terms of its growth. I mean, I think they're closer to 9-3 where Schaefer's at. USC, I think that was a game that I'd predicted Nebraska would win preseason, and they're a lot better up front than what they were a year ago. They'll be able to out-athlete Nebraska. They'll be one of the few teams left on the schedule that can do that. That concerns me a little bit. And then the other concern that I have is, I mean, Maryland was not a good rushing team and showed that they could run the ball against Nebraska. I mean, I think even Minnesota, which is really struggling to run the ball, I mean, they're going to try to do it against Nebraska too. I mean, I think the defense needs to continue to show that they can hold up there, and I think that's probably one of my concerns. But I think 9-3, 10-2 is the ceiling for what they can be. In that scenario you laid out with Indiana and Ohio State, is there like a truck stop coin flip? How do they determine that?
Yeah.
We're going Friday Night Lights?
Yeah.
Well, the question for me, though, is let's say they finish 9-3. I mean, at this point in the season, is there enough meat on the bone left on that schedule for them to be considered a CFP contender? With Penn State not being good.
They don't have enough quality wins.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Like, that's it. Even at 10-2, you wonder, with Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State presumably all ahead of them. And that, I mean, you left Illinois last year on the outside looking in a similar position. So it's like, I feel like for them to actually make it, they'd have to get to 11-1, which I think is not attainable, more than likely. But
I don't know.
Sorry to steal your thunder, BC.
We haven't asked BC yet. BC might have them running the table and going 11-1.
Well, it's always possible. I would say ceiling is 10-2 if they just maximize. I would predict 8 or 9 is where they're going to end up. And honestly, this game Friday is kind of my tipper for
Swing
8 or
game,
9. Yeah. So that's where I am. I think they're headed toward 8 or 9, but I think within their locker room right now, that is sort of the beauty of college football right now. There's a bunch of teams like Nebraska that they can see the path. It's there still, and you lose one game, you're not out of it anymore. Like when I was a kid, and that is like I kind of loved that about college football back in the day, where it felt like you had to win on September 27th or your season was in rubble. But I'm adjusting. I'm as an older guy now that this is okay, I guess.
Yeah, I think, guys, the thing that concerns me the most, and we've all kind of talked about it at some point, is it's great to see the moxie of them coming back after a bad quarter or just maybe some bad series like they had against Michigan State. But there are at least enough teams, I think at least 2 in particular, that are going to make you pay for that, where you're not going to be able to come back from that. I think USC is a prime example. I'm still trying to get a read of what this UCLA team is all of a sudden.
They're dangerous.
I think so, too. I mean, they still got an electric quarterback, and all of a sudden a team that feels like, hey, whether there was a disconnect with their coach or not, this team is all of a sudden figuring some things out. You've got to make that trip out to L.A. Iowa defensively is always going to be a handful. And I think you're right about Friday. I think this is kind of a swing game of what ultimately is the ceiling. I think if Nebraska wins this one on Friday, I think you could see possibly a 10-2. And I think that is the ceiling. I do, because I don't think any of us would say Friday is unwinnable. I think a lot of us say if you show up and play the football that you're supposed to play, and that's the key word there, supposed to, that all of a sudden you're 6-1, you're bowl eligible, and now everything is just gravy from there. But this is where, and I hate doing this is where I still think Nebraska's in a I'll believe it when I see it type of conversation. So I do think 10-2 is the ceiling. But I'm going to flip this on you guys real quickly, because Brunsey, you brought up what's the floor. Are we confident that this program, not only this year, but going forward, has found a way to elevate that floor? Because I think before you could even reach the ceiling, you got to establish that floor. I look at, and this is not going to be popular, and I'm sorry, folks, if you're listening to this, Iowa, over the last several years, has done that. They've established a floor. I mean, how many times have we seen them? A 9-win team, then a 4-win team, then an 8-win team, then a 3-win team. They've all of a sudden established a floor, And that's where you see those years like 2015 or a couple of years ago where they were knocking on the door of a college football playoff going into November. I think until you establish that floor as 6 or 7, I would say, that at the very, very worst, injuries and everything, that you are built strong enough to be a 7-win team, that's when you reach your ceiling. So where are we at on the floor of this team? I mean, is it what Brunsey said? Are we at 7 wins? Is that the floor right now?
Yeah, I think that's a fair floor until they prove otherwise for another year or two. I mean, you need to build up some data of like 2 or 3 seasons, honestly, before you can say, oh, this is a team that consistently wins at least 8 games, like you're talking about with Iowa. So very much so right now, like 7 is the floor. I think they're going to surpass that, but there's that doubt in your mind, and the margins for error are so small in this game now. I mean, it really is the NFL light. Like you look around the scores, and I know what Rule's saying about sometimes there's some Big Ten programs that don't get as much respect, like if you beat them, as like certain, like he didn't say this, but some SEC teams, like for instance, if you beat like Arkansas, who is perennial, I mean, they're just sort of like but for some reason Arkansas or somebody like that sounds better than like beating Maryland or something like that. I do think there's certain teams in the Big Ten where you don't get the credit that like you maybe should just for handling your business. And so this league is tough, but I think they need to prove over the next 2 to 3 years that 8 is the floor. But it's going to take a few years. It's going to take your head coach coming back with this young roster that he likes.
Yeah, Shafe, would you look at that as probably reasonable right now for Nebraska? 7 being kind of that number for the bottom right now?
Yeah, I mean, especially when you consider the schedule that you're looking at. You don't have Ohio State, you don't have Indiana, you don't have Illinois, you don't have Oregon. I mean, you're not playing any of the teams that were the consensus top 4 in the conference, or the consensus right now. You are playing Penn State. We don't know what that Penn State team looks like. I don't know how much they're going to even try the rest of the year. It's a wild new era of college football. So I think 7 wins is certainly a fair floor for this team. I think it'd be a disappointment if they're anywhere, around there going into the Iowa game. I think that you have an opportunity in front of you that these are rare. And so that has to be the message from Matt Rule. It has to be the message as they go through practices on days where they don't want to practice and everything else. Like you have right in front of your face is a pathway to, being remembered forever at Nebraska, quite frankly. So whether they can go do that or not remains to be seen. But I think it'd be a massive disappointment if they came in at 7-5 or 6-6 this year.
Guys, I want to look at, before we get to, and we are going to take a page out of the Husker 24/7 Sports podcast, which comes out tomorrow. The Hypecast comes out weekly. These guys do a phenomenal job. I'm not just promoting this because I'm on with them tomorrow, but the Hypecast is awesome. Make sure you check it out weekly. It's a lot of fun. They do something that I think is so much fun. It's the oddly specific prediction, and they gave us permission that we could all do an oddly specific prediction for this upcoming Minnesota game. But we've all kind of pointed to this. I think it's very fitting that this is the midway point of the season, and this feels like the swing game of what Nebraska, what we were just talking about, what they could ultimately achieve. Guys, I look at what PJ Fleck teams have done. Good up front, solid defensively. They make you work for everything. You've got to be very sound, very disciplined. I always feel like we had this conversation when Nebraska would take on Northwestern under Fitz. It's kind of similar with PJ Fleck, where they're not going to impress you or overwhelm you, but they will wait around for you to make that mistake. And I don't see that really changing with this version of Minnesota. They've won some ugly games. They escaped against Purdue on a pick 6, but they won the game. And this one, it's always an uneasy one, especially with a short turnaround. Even though Minnesota also played on Saturday, they get the luxury of not traveling. There's always a running element to this, and Darius Taylor, even though he's been banged up, is a solid running back. This game, to me, I think it has everyone's attention because of the past. But if you guys look at just the matchups, this version of Nebraska versus this version of Minnesota, Brunsey, What do you think is the key matchup? What are you looking for the most in this game that dictates it one way or the other?
Yeah, I think a big factor is going to be which team can run the ball. I mean, if Nebraska shows up and they're able to move the ball on the ground with Emmett Johnson, I think Nebraska will have no problems. Purdue really pushed Minnesota around up front last weekend. I was a little bit surprised by the ease with which they did that. So I think that's a big factor. And then for Nebraska, I mean, if you've got you're facing a redshirt freshman quarterback, it feels like that's pretty much all Nebraska faces anymore are freshmen and redshirt freshman quarterbacks. But if you can make Minnesota one-dimensional and make it into a throw game for them, I like Nebraska's chances in the secondary of being able to defend. So whichever team can show up and kind of control the pace of the game, because I think that's in the past been something that Minnesota's done really well. I mean, they've really just kind of slowed the game down, turned around and handed it off to Ibrahim about 275 times during the time he was at Minnesota, and then just really turned it into a, who's going to screw up first, usually Nebraska, or, just a one-score win. And I think Nebraska, this version, is going to be more competitive in this game and not make those types of mistakes that they've made in the past.
It seems like so much of the games with Minnesota over the years have been that. I mean, that's almost been the identity of the team. I think you look back over their games this year and their Power 4 wins, I think they've been outgained in 3 of them. And so it seems like the only thing that's a general guarantee for PJ Fleck programs is that they will finish ahead in the stat that counts, which is the score. But other than that, they don't really care how they get there. And Nebraska's not been the team that's been able to get over that threshold in years past. Schaefer, who do you think for Nebraska, if you had to pick a guy or maybe 2 that helps Nebraska get there on Friday night, who would you go with?
Well, I think you start, offensively, I think Emmett Johnson, if he can continue what he did against Maryland, that certainly, you look at what Minnesota allowed against Purdue, I think it was over 250 yards rushing. We don't think about Purdue as a program that runs the football. So if they're able to do that, then you wonder if Nebraska and Emmett Johnson have something they can do there. I wonder if Nebraska can incorporate, whether it's Dylan Raiola or Heinrich Harburg or, something else in their running game, because Purdue took advantage of that with a more mobile quarterback. Bruns said something, and it had me thinking, one of the big advantages Nebraska has in this game. It's the first time in Big Ten play they're playing a quarterback, and really the first time they played a Power 4 team, they're playing a quarterback that can't run. The long for Drake Lindsey this year is 3 yards. He's not a threat to run the football, and so that actually plays, I think, pretty well in their defense's hands, because you can sit back there in that zone and throw different coverage looks at him, and we'll see if Williams, Winery, and the rest of the guys up front can apply pressure, but. So I think, you start offensively, Emmett Johnson, and then I think defensively, whether it's Desan McCullough or Williams Winery, if one of those guys can bring pressure off the edge, that can make life pretty difficult for Minnesota. Their pathway to winning this game is Nebraska beating itself. I really do think that. And that doesn't mean Nebraska can't. They're famously very good at that over the last decade. But I think that, the more you look at this, there's just advantage after advantage for the way Nebraska's set up.
BC, we've waxed poetic about the special teams. I feel like games like this, short turnaround where you need a little extra something, this is why you bring Mike Eckler, and to this point, his special teams collectively have played up to that. How big of a factor do you think that phase is in this game if Nebraska's to get out of Huntington Bank Stadium with a win?
Yeah, the beauty of it is we're thinking about how are they going to make that play? You almost expect them to have a play somewhere, whether it's Ja'Cory, whether it's Archie pinning them deep, at the 3-yard line. I know Archie's had some kicks that have been a little off, but I still think we've seen enough of that kid to think that was Mike Eckler knowing what he's doing, picking a punter out. I think he's going to be really good, especially when it's not ultra windy like it was against Michigan State. So, yeah, that can make all the difference. That's a big reason they're 5-1 now. We didn't talk as much about it in the first half of the season conversation, but that aspect of the game you just feel like is worth 3 to 7 points, and it used to be a -3 to 7 points. And so a year or two ago, you're like, I hope they break even with special teams. Now it's how can they break it open? And so I fully expect they're going to do something. They're going to either get a 30-plus yard return, or they're going to block a punt, or something like that. And that's what's different, and that's why I think a lot of people have hope for the second half of the season. It's not just offense and defense. It's like that third phase so often tilts these games, and Nebraska's suddenly got the advantage there.
Before we wrap it up, we're going to do a couple of drawings. We're going to get into our oddly specific predictions and our game predictions here in just a moment. We got 10 minutes left before we wrap things up. But if you have raffle tickets, get them out. I got a couple of $10 gift cards to Kros Strain Brewing. First one is, what do you got, Grant?
Oh, okay.
I love putting you on the
I
spot
didn't
there.
know if I was reading this or not. 396, 393, 396, 393. So there's $10 gift card number one.
So just go up to the bar, ask for Tina. She will hook you up with that. I got another $10 gift card. And again, just go see Tina up at the bar. She will take care of you. There you go.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
396-408. 396-408 is the other one.
This table. That table's the place to be. All right. Excellent. And we're before we get out of here, too, we're going to do our predictions, our oddly specific predictions, but we still got a couple more things to give away, so don't throw your tickets away. If you haven't won, there's still a shot you could win. All right, as I mentioned, the Husker Hypecast on Husker 24/7 Sports, fantastic. These three do an awesome job. They always bring a guest on. They had to settle for me for tomorrow. But the oddly specific prediction, who started that, by the way? I feel like that might have been a Schaaf thing. But then Bruns always gives a weird score. So or maybe it's BC. I don't know. Who did this?
We would discuss the upcoming game, and then we would want to predict some weird thing that would happen, and then it just sort of, like all good things, it didn't set out to be what this was. I mean, the Hypecast started as a joke. It started as a joke to get people fired up for some terrible non-conference game or something like that, and then it just turned into the most popular thing that we do. So, I wish that there was some real thought that went behind anything that we do at Husker 24/7, but this is the brain trust of it, and you kind of get what you see.
Yeah, makes sense. Can you, before we do these, can you begin this segment the way you start the Husker Hypecast?
Yeah, I mean, I hope people are aware of what happens here, but let's get hyped!
There you go. I love it. Yes, indeed. There we go. That's when you know fun things are about to happen. We're gonna move all the way though. Husker Hypecast has plenty of great content. You have to wait till you get to the oddly specific predictions, but here we are. Schaaf, since you did that so eloquently, I want your oddly specific prediction for Nebraska, Minnesota.
Well, so I'm caught in between. Do I give the same one that will be airing, or
You guys had something different.
okay? Yeah,
good.
I can do something different here. I can go in a different route. So I mentioned before that one of the things Nebraska might try to do is get a little bit more quarterback run game going. Dylan Raiola runs in a touchdown on Friday night from the 8-yard line. He keeps the zone read. It is slow developing. It doesn't look like he's going to get there. He almost pulls off one of his terrible slides, but instead he stumbles into the end zone. And really what it is, it's a sense of relief when he gets there that he made it safely, he made it with the ball, and Nebraska gets all 6 points.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. There you go. Because as you're saying that, I'm just envisioning it.
Well, yeah, you've seen him run before.
Yeah, and there's the combination of it's somewhere in between a slide and a fall, so you call it the slaw, that he'll fall into the end zone. You're like, that didn't look pretty, but he got in, and everybody will celebrate.
Have you offered to teach him how to slide with your baseball coaching
No,
background?
I really want to teach him the pop-up slide. They did that with Caleb Williams on a slip and slide. Okay, and we know he's the greatest quarterback in the NFL, is he not?
I think there might be some debate there.
CW, baby. All right, BC, you can go with the one you're going with for the Hypecast, or you can go a completely different route.
Yeah, I don't have a real funny one this week, which is a bummer. I think I said Jameer Khan was going to block another punt, but it was going to be like a partial block where it travels 27 yards, and there's probably debating in the press box. Did he tip it, or was it just a shank? So that's going to happen. I do think there's going to be, Nebraska has struggled inside the 5-yard line finishing some drives. They're going to go for a 4th and goal at the 1, and they're going to try to slip Lindenmeyer out, sort of like they did at the goal line against Maryland, except it's going to be incomplete, but this time they're going to call the hold. It's going to take Nebraska 3 more plays to get in, and there's going to be so much whining on social media about the whole process, but they're going to end up punching it in, and then everyone's going to have a good chuckle about it.
So it's not going to look easy, is what you're telling us.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Bruns.
All right, Luke Lindenmeyer, this is partially from today, too. He catches an 18-yard touchdown pass. As you're watching at home, Nebraska's going to be going right to left. So that's going to be towards downtown. There's a Paul McCartney concert going on in Minneapolis this same time.
Really?
That's just a random factoid. That has nothing to do with the touchdown.
I did not
So Luke Lindenmeyer is going to kind of harken back to what he did last week with the toe tap. Dylan just, darting it in there. 18 yards, back corner of the end zone. He's going to toe tap, not once, but twice. This is a throwback to the Conavainoa touchdown. All the specific prediction as well. 18 yards, Luke Lindenmeyer, back right corner of the end zone, farthest away from your TV, going towards
Toward McCartney?
with the scoreboard. That they're going in that end zone.
Is McCartney on stage yet?
Yeah, he's playing Band on the Run. He's pissing everybody off because they want to hear Beatles hits, but he's playing Wings hits. Huh?
Do they have to review it, and then does Lindenmeyer lead everybody into a "Let It Be"?
Yeah,
they're
Yes.
singing "Let It Be."
You'll get
that kind of
you'll
thing?
get like some very faint boo after they uphold it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's all coming together. This is all locking in right now.
This
I
is
love
tough.
that.
This is tough to follow up for my first
Beat that one.
oddly specific prediction. I'm going to go Nebraska gets a defensive score, and they'll go pick 6 for the first time this year, and it's Sierra Wright, and he'll do it in the 3rd quarter on Minnesota's 2nd possession.
Wow.
So there we go. There we go.
We're logging that in there, too. That's really good. I'm going to go. So you guys inspired me to go a different direction than what we talked about earlier today. Hypecast tomorrow, you can see the other oddly specific predictions. One of you guys brought up because I mentioned, I'll let one of my oddly specific predictions, because there's a 3-pronged attack. I did say there would be a trick play touchdown for Nebraska, and one of you guys reminded me of the Jeff Sims. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, yeah, disaster.
Yeah, where the ball essentially goes to the ground. He has time to pick it up, dust it off, and then throw it down the field, and but I am going to go trick play, but it's going to be in the flea flicker variety. It will involve Ja'Cory Barney, but it's going to be very slow developing, almost kind of like the 8-yard run. It's going to look very funky. The ball is going to be hanging up in the air. It's going to be underthrown because Dylan has to get rid of it because he's in a flea flicker where you should never be under pressure. He's going to be under pressure. Ja'Cory Barney is so far out in front of the football that a Minnesota DB thinks he has the pick. It deflects off his hands, and then it winds up in Ja'Cory Barney's hands, and then he runs it in for a touchdown. So that will be the trick play that goes the distance for Nebraska in that one, but it will not look pretty, as many things have not in that stadium for Nebraska.
When's the last time an oddly specific prediction has come to pass?
I hit one earlier this year when I said Nebraska would get a sack on the very first Houston Christian passing attempt. And Marquise Watson-Trent just leveled that quarterback at the 9-yard line.
And there was much celebration in the press
Yeah,
box.
I felt good about it.
All right, boys, last couple minutes here. Let's go around the horn, give our predictions for the game. Grant, go ahead.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. Nebraska wins 34-24. They cover and win for the first time in Minneapolis since 2017 or 2015. 2015? 15.
Yep. All right, Shafe.
Nobody has tomatoes, right? Yeah, okay, good. So I have Nebraska losing. I just think this is the spot on the schedule where it doesn't go right. I have Minnesota 23-20. I could be very, very wrong. Let's hope.
Now you're getting booed. All right, BC, what do you got? You got to pick us up
I'm not
here.
stealing from Grant because you heard me this morning what my
Yes.
score was.
I did, yes.
And it was 34-23 Nebraska. That was a score they lost to Minnesota in 2013. A tough day for Taylor Martinez. A lot of stuff came out of that game.
Slightly.
So I say they turn around that score and get to 6-1, and there's not a big storming or over celebration about the bowl eligibility. We just move on.
And then everybody heads to the Paul McCartney concert.
Yeah, and
I did not know that. Thank you, Bruns. Yeah. Thank you for that little nugget. I had no idea.
If you don't have your hotel room now, good luck. You're staying at Storm Lake.
Chaska. What do you got?
24-20 Nebraska. I also will eat 3 dilly bars during the course of the game in the press box.
Yeah, so they give dilly bars as a
big dilly bar
guy. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. 24-20 Nebraska.
So you get 3?
Well, no.
Are they all you can eat?
Yeah, they don't limit you. There's not like you have to ration them.
Okay. I didn't know if maybe BC was always nice and like, hey, I had steak in front of you on Wednesday. Here's my dilly bar.
No.
Okay.
It's a nice press box there.
Yeah.
That's a press box where Bill Moose famously went, "Oh no!"
Yeah.
when they were getting beat 54-21.
Yep.
Allegedly.
Who was the quarterback again for Minnesota?
Demery Croft.
Then he ended up getting kicked off the team because he kicked the door or something like that. He kicked the door down or whatever. Before I give you mine, what's our? You guys are road tripping. What's the snacks?
Bugles. What am I supposed to say?
Hidden Valley Ranch Bugles.
Yeah.
And you're going with those?
They're good.
Okay.
They're good.
All right, Bruns.
Peanuts, M&Ms, and Cheez-Its.
Okay. That's fuel right there.
The thing I like about these guys is they respect a good gas station stop. I like when you're with people that'll give you like 10 to 15 minutes and kind of like Halloween, you come back and you show each other what you got. That's kind of what we do.
To quote the late, great, and our dear friend Greg Sharp, anytime you would do something like that, you go to a gas station, pick something up, or you'd be at a place like Kros Strain and get a beer, his famous go-to was always, what'd you go with? What'd you go with there? So I feel like that's what you're being asked right there. What'd you go with? Yep. All right, so I'm sticking with Bruns, Grant, BC. Sorry, Shafe. I did have this as a loss in the preseason, but I told you guys earlier today, I don't know if I really think Minnesota is that good. And I like that Nebraska has a little bit of swagger in late game, heroics, have a little confidence there. I think this is a tight game. I cannot get myself to see it any other way, but I think Nebraska holds on. I think they do have to make another defensive stop, but I think they win 27-24. So I'll take the Huskers not to cover, but I got them winning 6-1, and everybody goes to the concert very, very happy. God, I love that. That's so great. Guys, again, the Hypecast will be dropped when? Tomorrow?
It'll be up tomorrow morning, usually right around 8 a.m. or so.
All right.
Cool.
To get hyped on Thursday morning. And then for all of our fans, our friends that are Husker Huddle fans, this is going to serve as this week's Husker Huddle as well with Grant and myself. We'll have our normal Husker Huddle next week. Again, we're going to do a couple of drawings before we get out of here, but first of all, I want to thank everybody for coming out. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Yes, awesome time. Big thanks to Bobby Cross, to Scott Strain, to Doug Viskerna, to Tina Robinson, the entire Kros Strain crew. Kros Strain, jeez. I knew I was going to say it at some point. Remember when I had to record the commercial, I kept doing that? Kros Strain, you guys are amazing, the very best in craft beer. And also big thank you to Omaha Steaks for providing that delicious food again. They are a great partner of ours too, so we want to thank them as well. Before we get out of here, each one of these guys is going to draw a ticket. This one is for a 4-pack of the Crusher, the official craft beer of the Huskers. Grant, what do you got?
All right, the winning ticket is 396406. 396406 gets the Crusher. Here we go.
You are? Oh, for this.
Oh, there you go.
Not this, but the shirt.
I don't know what to say after that. 396413.
39. Oh. Ooh,
So I
bad
win?
drawing.
Looks like I won it.
Here.
You want me to read it? 359800.
Another 4-pack of the Crusher.
396-404.
396-404. Oh, we got it.
Yeah.
Right over there in the back. Yeah, let's applaud here, people.
We might have our winners here, actually. Okay. We got 3 people online.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
Crush your shirt.
396-392.
396-392. All right, there we go.
Again, thank you guys so much. We're going to be doing this in December. We'll let you know the exact date. It'll be mid-December, hopefully right around Volleyball Final Four, and hopefully we're talking about a national championship, and we'll see where Nebraska is. Until then, thank you so much for being here, part of Huskers Live on Tap. We'll talk to you in December.